So, the Deathslinger, the story of why the Midwest is such a hellscape. It could be a sign of the times, or it could just be the Midwest, but folks were super racist, and Caleb's daddy couldn't get a job. He was an engineer, and boy, Caleb really picked up what his dad was putting down, with a bit of a homicidal twist. See, kids were bullying him because he was Irish, so he had fully designed a mask to introduce pain to their eyeballs. Eventually, the United West Rail Company pulled their head out of their asses and hired Caleb when he was old enough, because that guy could make some amazing shit, like a gun that shot railroad spikes into the ground, or a steam-powered tunneling drill. Now, unfortunately, Caleb's boss, Henry Bayshore, was a raging dick, and stole all of his patents and sold them all and pretended not to know about it. Obviously, Caleb was a little pissed and casually kicked down the door and stapled his boss to the desk with a railroad spike. The iron fist of the Midwest justice system came down on him, but since the boss survived, Caleb only got sent to prison. Caleb did not like the other inmates because he thought of them as uneducated, but he did run into a prison warden who seemed pretty smart and had a hard-on for the future vision of the American penitentiary program that is bent over the knee of capitalism. See, Caleb started making torture devices and got paid in extra meals. Eventually, the warden offered to let him off if he would fill up the prison. As an added bonus, he also offered to frame his boss and have him rot behind bars for the rest of his life. While many of us dream of watching our shitty bosses suffer, Caleb was released from prison and went out to live the dream. He got straight to work, making a spear gun that he named Death the Bayshore, which for some reason he thought would definitely not kill the person he shot with it. Obviously, the first run ended up with the grand majority of the thief's internal organs smearing the road as Caleb awkwardly tipped his hat, muttered "ma'am," and went back to the workshop. Caleb was a smart boy though, and he eventually figured out how to make his spear gun less murdery and more stabby. Still, a lot of people saw outlaws getting disemboweled and started calling him the Deathslinger. The prison warden was getting a little nervous for our boy Caleb and gathered a ragtag group of assholes and sent them out to be his posse. They worked for 6 whole years, wheeling in outlaws with spears up their asses. Then Caleb saw the article. His old dickhead boss just bought the prison from the warden that promised to frame that guy and let him rot. Caleb was obviously pissed, and even though these dudes were specifically chosen by and set free by that prison warden, Caleb's posse was pissed. They pledged their loyalty, hopped on their horses, and rode off into the Midwestern sunrise to raise hell. The whole gang broke into the prison, and the guards made the mistake of bringing pistols to a spear gun fight. Caleb got to the prison warden's office and finally had a stroke of good luck. The warden was in there with his asshole boss. Obviously, Caleb beat the hell out of his boss, and his posse took the leftovers. They didn't kill him, of course. The warden wanted people brought into the prison alive and all. So they just dragged them into the prison and dropped them off with the prisoners, who were all pretty excited at the prospect of having some alone time with these 2 douchebags that tortured them. Long story short, the entity really liked Caleb's work and hired him. For once, Caleb had a boss that actually respected what he was capable of. Sure, the entity is 100% dick, but it definitely wasn't directed at his new hire. So yeah, the Deathslinger. Plain and simple.